lady's voice say now recording, and then I think Lou is going to say a prayer.
Right. So good afternoon, everyone. Before we start, Lou, if you can say the prayer or thought for the moment.
Okay. Help us this afternoon to do great things. If we can't do great things, help us to do small things in a great way. Help us to listen to each other and work collaboratively to help young people in our community learn even more. Amen.
Thank you for that. Could I just mention on the protocols as well, if you intend, does anybody need to leave early? If you do, can you please say goodbye to us in the comments box so we know you've gone intentionally, not just fallen off. And if you can close down all your telephones and any other noises you've got in the room that might interrupt us. So that being said, if so I've already said welcome, haven't I, to everyone? It is rather strange, isn't it? This is the first one of us having a professional meeting together. So if you can forgive any sort of slowness or if I make mistakes, but I'm sure we'll get through it. If you can just be patient with the process, because it might take a little longer. If we could get on to the minutes, that's the first point.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just do a roll call of members to ensure that they can hear and can be heard?
I need to
please.
ask you to do a roll call and whether everybody can hear us. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Thank you. Okay, so meeting attendees, please, when I come to you, when I call your name, please can you verbally confirm that you are able to hear me, and I will confirm in response that I can hear you. So if we go down the list of names, Mr. Burbidge.
I can hear you.
Thank you, I can hear you too. Canon Nugent.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Mrs. Alt.
I can hear you.
Thank you. Lama Shosang.
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Debenham.
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Harrington.
Yes, I can hear you.
Mr. Nicholas.
Yes, loud and clear.
Mr. Caldecott.
I can hear you.
Mrs. Barker.
Yes, I can hear you.
Ms. Westlake.
Yes, I can hear you.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you. And Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Matt. Yes, I can hear you.
And the officers and consultant, Stephen Pett.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you too. Alison Naylor.
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you. And Jen Priest.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any apologies for absence? Unmute yourself, Matt.
Apologies. No apologies received.
Okay. And are there any substitutes, Matt?
No nominated substitutes.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, now we can get on to the minutes. I do apologise for that. So, are there any comments that anybody would like to make about the previous minutes? If we go to the front page, where it's got apologies for absence, meetings, and then SACRE budget, is there anything on that page that anybody would like to make a comment on? Okay. Then the second page, where it's got about religious education examination results, conferences, an update on any new initiatives. Is there anything on that page that needs to comment on? It feels weird, this does. Then the final page, number 15 and 16, updates to the SACRE Constitution, and then the meeting dates. Anything to comment on there? I've got one comment, and probably you might have to answer this one, Matt. when it's got to the bottom of number 15 on resolved, that Mrs. Barker is appointed as Vice Chairman of SACRE until May 2023, would it make more sense if we had it offset so it was till November 2023? Because if the chair is not chairman after the May voting, it leaves us without an officer to run any meeting. How does that work?
Well, it runs concurrently with the term of the council. So that is our next elections at the council take place in 2023 in May. And so that is why the term ends there. So that there will be an election of a new chair and chairperson and vice chairperson at the meeting in November for SACRE. That will be the first item of business at that meeting.
It is slightly worrying because it's so long. It means that we haven't got anybody officially being the chair for anything that crops up between the May and the November, which is quite a busy time, isn't it? Behind the scenes.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point to make. I will I'll have a look at the regulations and see if you would hold the chair or whoever's in post at the time, if they hold that chairpersonship until the meeting in November.
Yeah, it makes sense for both of us, wouldn't it? At that, if we can.
Okay, well, I'll look into that and update you.
Other than that, I propose that the minutes are accepted. If someone can second.
I second that.
Okay, right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, then do you want me to conduct the vote on that then? So
oh yes, please. Yes.
I will call aloud your names, and please can you state if you are for, against, or abstain in respect of the approval of the minutes of the meeting on 13th of March. So, Mr. Burbidge.
For.
Canon Nugent.
For.
Mrs. Alt.
For.
Lama Shosang.
For.
Mr. Debenham.
I sent my apologies for meeting, so I shall abstain.
Mr. Harrington.
For.
Mr. Nicholas.
I'll abstain as well.
Mr. Caldecott.
For.
Mrs. Barker.
For.
Ms. Westlake.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
I wasn't at the meeting, so I shall abstain.
And Councillor Hewitt, can you just confirm that you can hear me, please?
Yeah, and apologies, I'll have to abstain. I don't know what you're voting for because
Oh, it's on the minutes of the previous meeting.
I know I wasn't there, so I'll have to abstain. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Stone.
For.
Okay, well that's carried. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Response to any written public questions, Matt?
No questions received.
Before we go on, there is a point at the end there where it says a roundtable updates. You could obviously think about something you'd like to say throughout the meeting, but has anybody got any burning point that they would like us to find time for that needs to come under the roundtable? No? Okay. Okay, so number 5. Plans for Professional Development 2021. If you could introduce the report, please, Stephen.
Yes, thanks, Lama Chosang. So those of you who were there in March will remember that as we finished that, we were planning for a launch, a summer launch of the agreed syllabus. And obviously at that stage weren't quite sure how long any lockdown or any closure of schools and everything else would last. And obviously over the summer, it was not possible to have live face-to-face launches of the agreed syllabus. We did talk at the meeting about how at RE Today we were trying to plan in order to be able to deliver something to enable schools to have access to the new syllabus and training. And that is what we were able to do. Actually, on the day that we were due to have the launch conference, the 5th of June, we sent out emails to all schools and let people know that the syllabus was available online. They could register for it. If they registered on the RECA website, they then get a link and a password to get hold of the syllabus itself, some accompanying resources, including a 45-minute recorded webinar with me talking them through the syllabus and giving them a chance to pause at various stages to work things through, along with some accompanying workbook as well. So that the idea would be that teachers could take the video recording, the webinar recording, and work through an introduction to the syllabus in their schools in order to enable them to begin using it from September. So we had by the end of September, 66 schools had registered for that, and in the last couple of weeks, another 7 have registered. So 73 schools have registered for that, and Alison and the local authority are looking at contacting the schools that have not yet registered. Alison, I don't know if you have those.
No, I've only got the last list that you sent me, so that was back in the summer, so I haven't got an updated list on there. We have sent an email out to all the schools you identified at the beginning of September, so probably hence you've got the 7 more. Was there an issue though with some of the Catholic schools being on there that shouldn't have been on that list? I can't remember.
No, not on. Well, on the original school list that the local authority sent to me had some Catholic schools on, but in terms of the list that I've got of schools that have signed up, no, there aren't any Catholic schools on that one.
Okay, we would have sent you a whole school list of 98 schools. So there have been some Catholic schools on there, which we obviously didn't need to chase. So I could do an updated list really of who now hasn't taken you up on your offer, so we can chase it.
I can send that through straight after this meeting then, yeah. So given that schools have had that recording, we were suggesting, and I'd like to propose that we do a sort of online conference, a live one with schools signing in to join an online conference, which would do the equivalent of a launch conference. So just schools have had a chance to see the syllabus and to have a look at the webinar, but this would be a chance to have a little bit more training. And in the papers that you've received, starting on page 11, so it's pages 11 and 12, is the proposal for doing this on the 2nd of December. So we would need to advertise that to schools. Schools again could register with us at RE Today and then have access to that session. So that's 3 shorter sessions, and it covers a lot of the key information they'll need to implement the syllabus through this year. I mean, it would be helpful to hear what you think about that, whether that's what we should do, whether that's the right sort of program. Particularly, we need to decide if that's a primary and secondary session, or whether it can just be primary, and maybe we have an evening session with secondary teachers separate to this. In one sense, that makes it simpler. So that's the first part of the proposal for training, providing CPD for teachers this year. I'm afraid you're muted, Lama Chosang.
I thought I'd left myself unmuted. No, I feel that the primary and the secondary should be separate because their concerns are slightly different. Their input will probably be different. So if I may explain to the group, we had a meeting earlier in the year. You gave us permission to look into the conferences and what was going to happen. And we decided to offer everything online until the end of July next year, rather than the COVID scenario keep running us and we go and book Pup-Rup Hall, etc., then have to cancel, and all those implications. We decided to be much more forward thinking and say, let's offer online only until the end, at least the end of July next year, for safety reasons. and then in the spring we can think about what's going to happen next autumn if we feel that the scenarios are changing. So if your comments could be based around that thinking, please. Anyone like to make a comment about the conferences?
Councillor Stone.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I agree that there should be two separate sessions, one for secondary, one for primary. I think that would work well. And I agree with the proposal that everything should be online until the end of July because of all the uncertainty. We don't want to start booking halls and booking schools and so on, only to have to unscramble the whole thing. Current circumstances, I think that's a sensible way forward. Who knows what the situation will be next autumn? It could be very different. So we can deal with that nearer the time. But dealing immediately with the training for the new syllabus, for the new agreed syllabus, I think that's the best way forward. And while I'm speaking, I'd just like to thank Stephen very much for all the work he's put into this, into very difficult circumstances. Just the lockdown coinciding with all the work being completed on the agreed syllabus. And here we are several months later, but it is all going ahead. Schools have registered, which is all very good. And very good attendance at this meeting this afternoon too, I must say. So I think, Chairman, your proposals make a lot of sense, and I'd be happy to second any proposal that you wish to make. But obviously we'll listen to other comments first. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any other comments?
Mr. Harrington?
Yeah, we've been running all of our training online, and at the moment we're finding teachers because of the nature of bubble classrooms aren't necessarily able to get out. And I just worry that you'll have staff that are unable to join in because they are working in their bubble at the time. And will it be recorded so that people can watch it afterwards then if they can't make it? And also because the nature of how it is at the moment, we're finding staff are often changing who's registered to come on a course. It will be someone else because someone's in isolation or having to work at home, or different things are happening, and we're getting different people turning up just because the nature of a school is changing day to day as different things occur.
I don't know how to answer that one. Does anybody else like to come in and make a comment? Perhaps you, Stephen, or somebody else come up with some ideas? No?
I think the recording's a good idea. We've done that for several head teachers briefings in the council, and we send the recording out to probably about 5 people for each meeting, 5 head teachers, and they're finding it very helpful because they are constrained as to when they can come out from their day job, so to speak, to attend a CPD session or meeting. A recording of any training will be good. Just to be able to send the link out afterwards to people.
There's 2 points on that. Is one that we're charging, obviously, or RE Today need to charge to cover their costs of preparation, etc. So how would we cover that if we were going to have it as a recording? And the other point is if people were going to a conference, they'd be out of the schoolroom, the classroom anyway. So surely the same degree of commitment would be faced, even if it's because they're in a separate room in the school online.
I think you could still charge for the recording because they'd still be attending the conference. They'd just be attending it 3 hours later, so it wouldn't be live. So I don't think that's an issue. I think there is an issue. I don't know if some head teachers want to come in here and sort of, give their views. But I think there is an issue currently with having staff out of school, because if you've got several staff isolating at home because of COVID symptoms or because of contacts, you aren't actually able to release staff. So I think schools are quite short on their teaching staff generally at the moment. So I think that's a bigger issue than it would normally be.
Okay. I noticed you want to put your hand up, Councillor Hewitt. We're actually doing the blue hand for under participants or reactions for you to be able to, and then Matt will ask you to come in and speak. But is there a comment that you wish to make, please? You need to unmute first.
Well, I was just briefly going down it, and I just wondered what percentage of schools, did you say 73 schools have responded? How many schools is that out of? Because I haven't got that figure in my head.
Stephen?
That's out of 98, isn't it, Alison?
That's a lot.
98, but some of those are Catholic schools, so I think you probably need to take 4 off of there to make it 94.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's a pretty good uptake, but it does concern me about the ones that haven't taken it up yet, of course.
Mrs.
There's a possibility, I need to look at the list again, so Stephen needs to send me the updated list, that some of them are part of a MAT, a multi-academy trust, so you might be able to tick off some schools because they're all actually part of one big federation, so to speak.
Right. If you could find, is there a need to find out? I suppose there's a need to concern ourselves with the ones, are we going to be chasing people up? And if we are, at what point? How long do we give them before we give them a reminder? What is the usual method, Alison or Stephen?
They've had a reminder from us already. So we sent something out at the beginning of September, the start of term, via email. So I think the next step will be another email, and then I'll be getting business support to phone around and find out why they haven't registered.
Okay. If we can have an update of that at some point, maybe January or whenever you feel is appropriate, Alison, if we can have it just by email. But then we just need to decide whether we need to have it on the agenda. Do we go and chase up schools at the end of the day? Do we concern ourselves? Do we want to put it on the agenda next time if people are missing? The schools haven't taken it up. So if you could let us know at some point, we can make a decision on that. Okay.
I think Stephen had his hand up here.
Right, okay. Stephen?
Yeah, this is going back to the recording. I mean, if schools register to come on this, and we will then make a recording available to them. So if they aren't able to come on the day, then they can have the recording. The advantage of being there on the day, if they're able to, is that we'll be using breakout rooms and there'll be discussions, and those it's not possible to record all those. So obviously being there, for the live session is an advantage. But yes, the making it available to the schools who've registered afterwards is perfectly possible.
And two requests, please, Stephen. One is, can faith representatives please have an online copy of the syllabus? And also, would we be able to join in on the conferences, please?
Yes and yes.
Thank you. Lovely. Oh, I can see Midge smiling. Yes. Okay. What are we taking out of this? We've obviously, I propose that we do everything online until at least the end of next July. If somebody could second that.
I second that, Chairman. I'm happy.
Okay. If you can do your bit, please, Matt.
Well, I think if there's general consent, then we can take that forward as an action note. So if that's I've recorded all conferences online until next July, and then I can forward that on to Stephen as an action note from the discussion. Okay. I presume everybody's happy with that? From the all nodding the heads. Okay. So, and what do we feel about the fact of having the two conferences separate? I'm suggesting that we do. Does everybody agree with that idea?
Yes.
Okay, let's put that one forward. Are there any complications that you envisage over doing it this way, Stephen? Has RE Today worked on this up to date? Have you run any online yet?
Yes, we've done several sort of agreed syllabus launches through the webinars, and we've started this autumn term doing them live. I mean, the challenge is as has been pointed out already, just that even though schools sign up, their teachers may not actually be available on the day. But it's, we try to make it as flexible as possible, really. Obviously, there's a limit to how flexible you can be, because we need to do the session at some point. But the idea with this is to get it done before the end of term, so that it helps schools for preparing for the spring term.
Okay. And then it's back to you, Stephen, for your next part of the same subject, isn't it?
Okay, well, I will adapt that flyer and program so that it just says it's primary rather than primary and secondary. And then we can start sending it out to the contacts that we've got for people who've been on conferences before. I'll also send it to Alison for you to distribute to schools via the Spotlight Bulletin and any other means you have to let them know. Mark as well, obviously, for church schools, that would be, if you're able to send it around to your schools, that'd be very helpful. So that's the syllabus launch. And I think that in terms of secondary, if it's okay with you, Chair, I'll talk to Lou about putting on an after-school webinar to catch up with where schools are. It's not a large number of schools, and then just see what their needs are, really, rather than planning something with a full program, and then respond to that, if that's okay.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Then the next part of the papers, page 13, is when we met the sort of strategy group, if that's what we're called, when we met a month or so ago, we were talking about trying to plan for a summer conference, as we've had most years, to let schools know now that would be coming up, and having a program so they know there's something coming, and one that would help them with implementing the agreed syllabus and keeping them up to date with what's going on in RE. And so I've just drafted an outline for that, which is on page 13. And so it'd be good to know if SACRE are happy with that as a proposal to do it, and to select, maybe comment on the program itself, what sort of topics whether those are the right topics to include.
Mm-hmm. I think it'd be quite interesting if we could get somebody dynamic from the Muslim world that could help deliver the picture in Islam. We haven't got anybody actually who lives in Herefordshire that could fit the bill, but perhaps somebody. It doesn't have to be that close anymore, does it, if it's an online conference? But perhaps look into that as an idea. And the usual openings we have on this as well, I presume. But no, I personally have other comments, please, from other people.
Mr. Harrington.
I was just going to say we've had the Imam Sahib from Craven Arms help us this week with a training session on Islam, and I'm sure he'd be willing to be involved in it as the nearest mosque in the area. He's very open and very good. He's worked with lots of schools across the diocese, all over, being the only mosque around, and he'll be very willing to come and help with that. And having been on the session that Lat, the person who wrote The Picture in Islam course at Strictly last year, I'm sure the materials for that will be very good as well.
Okay.
Mrs. Alt.
There's also Raz, Razvan, who came to the multi-faith days. I can't remember his surname. Do you remember, Stephen? Raz. He was amazing, wasn't he? Absolutely fantastic Muslim.
That's Razvan ul Haq.
Mm-hmm.
He did lots of multi-faith days in Herefordshire, and they're very interactive workshops, but I'm sure he could do something just as dynamic online.
Okay, well, if we could leave that with you, Stephen, then. Is everybody else in agreement to that?
Yes.
Yeah. And as always, if you want it opened with a meditation, I'm usually available. So, or else I can find somebody else that can run one with a difference. But, okay. What about special needs conference, Stephen?
Yes, thank you. So for the last 6 years or so, we've been having periodic support for special schools with a conference, and I'm planning one to happen in the spring. This has been, in general, it's been work that has gone with Gloucestershire and Herefordshire and Worcestershire SACREs, and then inviting people from further afield, because there's very little support and training for RE in special schools. And so we've had people from South Gloucestershire and Coventry come to those. So the proposal is to do an online afternoon conference. The date looks like it's going to be the 25th of February. This is part of a project that Gloucestershire SACRE have got some funding for from the West Hill Trust and NASACRE, the National Association of SACREs, small amount of funding to support this project, producing some resources for a website for RE in special schools. And part of that is to be kicked off at this conference with a keynote from Anne Chrisman, who's a national and respected and well-known leader in special RE. And so with Anne talking about the 5 keys approach, which is in the syllabus. And then for the second half of the afternoon, to include some of the teachers in Gloucestershire who've been using this syllabus for 2 or 3 years. So this is effectively it's a launch for special RE in Herefordshire, and it would those teachers in Gloucestershire have been working. I work with them every term, and they guide me in all kinds of ways. So I sit and listen as they talk about how they adapt the syllabus for their particular needs of their particular children, because their needs are so diverse and various. So this is the plan, to invite those schools, special schools in the 3 counties and beyond, to come to that afternoon conference. So a sort of keynote with Anne Chrisman, and then a sort of workshop, seminar type thing with these expert teachers from Gloucestershire about how to implement the syllabus in specific contexts. That's the plan, and it's just agreeing the date at the moment, and then I'll be contacting the special schools. So the Gloucestershire teachers are happy to be doing this. So then it's a question of encouraging other special schools to join.
Do you think this will cover everything, as these special needs schools seem to need more face-to-face interaction? We did mute the idea of perhaps having a face-to-face conference next October. Do you think there'd be still a need for one, or a benefit of having one?
I would say there's always benefit in having that. It's whether it's possible, really. But I mean, if we have this one in February, then that's the sort of thing that we can ask the teachers, isn't it, to say whether they'd like to work towards that.
Okay. Any comments from the floor? No? We're all in agreement then, are we, for Stephen to go ahead with the special needs conference in February?
Please.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Brilliant. Is there any chance of my joining in one of the online ones when you're with the Gloucestershire special need teachers? Would they mind if I joined in as opposed, to listen in and learn?
I can ask them. I mean, who knows what they'll say.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be useful if they would be happy for that. Okay.
I'm sure that'd be fine.
Yeah. Okay, that was number. What number have we got to? Sorry, Matt, I've gone and lost the plot slightly here.
Okay,
that was
so
number
that-
6, wasn't it?
No, that was agenda item number 5. So if
Number
you move on
5,
to the
okay.
draft SACRE annual report.
Okay, yeah, so Stephen will introduce the report. So it's back to you again, Stephen.
Thank you. Well, as you know, this is the annual report. It doesn't appear very different to previous years in terms of format. It's always pretty formal, but obviously it's just trying to give an account for the Department for Education of what we've been doing. And so that's what this report is for. So it'd be good to have SACRE's comments on anything to make sure that it's an accurate report that conveys what we've been able to do. You can see there are a couple of extra bits of information that'd be helpful to have on page 21, so item 5. But it is just asking for your comments on its accuracy and suitability to sum up what we've been doing in the last 12 months.
Sorry, comments from the floor? Of course, you've all read it, haven't you?
Oh, Councillor
Yeah,
Harvey.
Harvey.
Yeah, I was just wondering why all of the examinations were cancelled rather than being given marks in the same way that lots of other subjects. Is there something different about the RE syllabus that made it impossible to award GCSEs that way?
Stephen?
I'm hoping Alison's hand is up and she's
Oh, right.
answering that one.
Okay, Alison, sorry then.
The results were awarded for RE as they were all GCSEs, but because they were centre assessed grades, none of them can be used for analysis. So they haven't been published. So the only people that have the exam results are the schools themselves at the moment. And even when the DfE may finally publish them, they have specified they shouldn't be used for reporting and analysis purposes this year.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's a slightly different. I didn't read the report in the way that it was written quite that way. Is there some change to the wording that we could have that would clarify that, so that it's clear that young people who'd gone through the study process actually were awarded qualifications, but we just can't use them in the context here, but qualifications were obtained in RE across Herefordshire. So I think it just looks like nobody got anything.
Yeah, there's a really good point, Councillor Harvey. So if Alison, can you include a paragraph that meets that requirement, please? Okay.
So I'll email Stephen something.
Okay.
Because it's Stephen's report, so it'll have to go to him for.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Harrington?
I was just going to ask who I needed to send the Diocese of Hereford training to, whether it's Stephen or to the council, but that's answered my question. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I mean, I find it really useful that Stephen spoon feeds us so well on all this, that we're sitting here quietly just accepting it all. It really saves us an awful lot of angst and thinking time, doesn't it? So do we need to put anything on about the agreed syllabus launch June 2020? Is that sort of just retrospective, or do we have to put anything to include, or what date does this report end, Stephen?
It's the academic year. It's the last academic year. So it does say about it being available through electronic and recorded webinar.
Right. Okay. Well,
Mrs. Alt.
Sorry, carry on, Matt.
Sorry, I just wondered if the report included access to the new syllabus. Was the new syllabus not mentioned on there on the last report? I don't know if it.
Sorry, who's going to answer that one?
Also, before you answer, anyone answers, I was looking at someone else's annual report, because I've been a Baha'i on this SACRE. I'm also in touch with other Baha'is on other SACREs, and I looked at Cumbria's annual report, and it had, beautiful photographs of activities and things, and I just wondered if we could include things like that, when we do anything, that we could have children's work, or when we do any interfaith stuff, conferences or anything where children or adults do activities, whether we could include that in our annual report to make it look more interesting. Just for example, when Tracy did her she started her group, some photographs of the teachers there, or because we know SACRE supported Tracy, and when we do multi-faith events or anything like that, conferences that Stephen's done, displays, speakers, it would be really nice to include those in our annual report if it was possible.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Because it need all of us to be responsible on that one and sending something. Who will we be sending it into, Stephen? Yeah. Okay. If people do in the future, send stuff in that's appropriate, and yes, make it more interesting. Who actually reads this report at the end of the day? Stephen, Alison, whoever?
Well, it presumably sits in some web site inbox of the Department for Education. National Association of SACREs and SACRE, they'll read it, and they sort of collect them. But it used to be that the Department for Education would do an analysis themselves and produce a sort of super review of everyone's reports. But that hasn't happened for a number of years now. Actually, since QCDA were abolished. So yeah, I mean, it's the question as to how many people read them is a good question. I mean, I think it's perfectly legitimate for us to send it out to schools for them to read. One of the things about Cumbria is that they do make it public on their website. They are a well-supported SACRE and are very active. They've got some excellent websites, and I think perhaps we might talk a little bit later about the visits and visitors guide, and they've got a really excellent website at the moment, which is a sort of virtual visits. So Cumbria is it's got very well resourced.
So there's lots that we could do really to up the bar and make it more interesting, use it in more ways perhaps. Something that we can work towards. So any comments on that, or would somebody propose that we accept the SACRE annual report for 2019-2020?
I'm happy to propose that, Chairman.
Okay, and a seconder?
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, over to you, Matt.
Okay, thank you. And that was subject to the inclusion as raised by Councillor Harvey on the GCSE results.
Yeah.
Okay, so as before, I'll read aloud your names, and please can you state if you are for, against, or abstain to approve the draft annual report and the delegation to the clerk to finalise the document. So, Mr. Burbidge.
For.
Canon Nugent.
For.
Mrs. Alt.
For.
Lama Shosang.
Yes.
Mr. Debenham.
For.
Mr. Harrington.
For.
Mr. Nicholas.
For.
Mr. Caldecott.
For.
Mrs. Barker.
For.
Ms. Westlake.
For.
Councillor Harvey.
For.
Councillor Hewitt.
For.
And Councillor Stone.
For.
That's carried.
Okay. What time were we expecting Chris Giles to join us, Matt?
He's available from 3 o'clock.
Okay, so we've got time to start on the updates of any new initiatives then. So if we go on to number 8, because Chris Giles is going to be joining us when he finishes teaching, so we'll let him in when he arrives on that one. So again, another one for you, Stephen, if you can update us on any new initiatives, please.
I wonder whether we might just ask Tracy to talk about, just not to have a break from me reporting on everything. Tracy just saying what she's done with local groups. This isn't, because I think when Chris is here, Chris Giles is here, we'll talk about the visitors and visitors guide. I know that Tracy's been involved with that, but just how things have gone with the local teacher group that she's been running. Is that all right, Chair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Yes. Hi. So this term has been almost very busy behind the scenes. So we've not had a meeting yet because I thought it was probably fair to let everyone find their feet this half term with so many changes. But what has been happening is I've had quite a few email contacts from people where I've been talking to schools just via email and the occasional phone call. Lots of schools, just lots of questions, quite excited about the new syllabus. But for those of them that haven't, especially the ones that haven't experienced understanding Christianity, obviously it's quite different for them. So lots just asking a little bit of advice on how to map out their overviews for the year, the difference between mixed year groups and things like that. So the network seems to have very much been about communication between single schools and myself, and pointing people to support from other people as well. They're trying to fit around people's timetables because I think everybody seems so very busy this term, and that seems to have been working really, really well.
Okay, and you've got a meeting planned, I believe, Tracy.
Yes, we have booked a date for the first of our network meetings this half term. Well, this year, I should say, sorry. And I spoke with Stephen. So hopefully, I'm just trying to find where I wrote the date down. I do apologise. I've written it down, and now I can't see where I put it. Stephen, do you remember what we agreed?
Yeah, 24th of November.
I have no idea. Thank you very much. I don't know where I've written that down. It must be somewhere in my massive notes in front of me. The 24th of November, which is a Tuesday, I believe.
Yeah, and I've got it down as 4 p.m. Is that correct?
Yes, hopefully, because I know that we at the school here are doing a staggered finish. So some of our classes don't finish till gone 3:30. So 4 o'clock seems a good time to allow people to gather themselves after the end of the school day, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now Midge and I often attend these, or at least one of us always attend, but I think it would be rather nice, especially now that they're online, that other members of SACRE, another 1 or 2 members of SACRE, would like to listen in from time to time. just to see how they're run, what's discussed, and just to get a feel from it. So anybody else, if you feel inclined, please put the date down and contact Tracy. You'd be most welcome. And if there's anything she feels that you could say to add to the meeting, she'll ask you. So,
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Shall I deal with the Interfaith Week one, Stephen? If you finished, Tracy, have you? Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was only going to say that I've got an idea for the second network meeting that won't be until the spring term, possibly towards the end of spring term. I've had a lot of communication with the lady from CBN Europe. They run a program called Superbook, which before COVID was a very practical, hands-on session. They would come into schools, particularly at times of years of festivals, and they would run sessions within schools that was very, very popular, but they weren't very well known. So a lady from CBN has been given some time and money to come, hopefully virtually, to one of our network meetings to talk to schools and just kind of introduce herself and what they do, again, just to help support schools that little bit more. But they're just putting together their program of how they're going to be doing it all virtually. So it's only kind of an idea at the moment, but that is planned in for hopefully for towards the end of spring.
That sounds brilliant. Yeah. I think it's really great how you've taken all this on and you're working so hard on it, Tracy. Thank you. I'm sure the teachers in Herefordshire will really benefit from your enthusiasm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yes, okay. So I'll mention Interfaith Week. Stephen's got it written down here. It's Sunday the 8th of November to Sunday the 15th of November this year. And there's really a very good site for Interfaith Week if you go online. It's got numerous ideas on what to do. There's usually a slight theme, although in Herefordshire we never stick to the theme anyway. I'm actually running an online spiritual this time on the Monday evening. We decided to do an evening one, and it's going to be on the subject of happiness. So I haven't got to think too hard because I've sort of done that workshop many times before. So if anybody's interested in that, but again, it's around that fact that now that we're doing it online, I've actually did my first teaching to senior school online the other day. There were some problems, but there's an opportunity, I feel, for the teachers now to use us more in a more productive way. And we're a bit cheaper if we're doing it online rather than having to travel to the schools. And I find that I'm only doing for an hour or two rather than doing the whole day. It's not possible to do it online for the whole day. So we've got some items down here about what to work with the local interfaith group, of which I'm chairman. That's one idea. Organise an exhibition, celebrate the week on your website. So I know there's a few teachers online with us at the moment, but how can we quickly get this to these schools about Interfaith Week? Is there anything going out, Alison, in any time soon that could be passed around? Or is it quick to do an email to all the teachers?
If someone provides me with what they want sent out, I can certainly circulate it to schools.
I think taking that little bit about Interfaith Week and just putting just a comment in front of that might be useful.
Okay, well, if you send me what you want, I will sort out sending it to schools.
Comments from the floor, please. No thoughts, no comments? Gosh, being remarkably quiet.
Sorry, Mrs. Alt wants to speak.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. It's really important for this awareness now, especially at this time. And also, I just wondered if anyone had any events or anything planned, to respond to the Black Lives Matter sort of events that are going on, and how this issue of race can be addressed. And I'm sure it is influenced through RE as well. You know, it comes through RE as well, this sort of discussion should be in RE as well.
Okay, well, we're just finishing off. We'll just finish off about Interfaith Week. Is there any more comments on that before we go on to the Black Lives Matter one? No. Okay. Well, you brought the comment up straight away. So, if Stephen, if you take on this one and then talk with Midge over it.
Yes, thank you. So I mean, obviously, we won't go through all the updates. They're there for you to keep you up to date with what's going on. But there are, I think one thing is worth considering is whether we do a newsletter that includes a lot of this information to actually send out to schools to let them know directly. That might be something that we could choose to do. But following what Midge was just saying, my brilliant colleague, Lat Blaylock, spent the summer working with 60 teachers, majority for them Black and minority ethnic groups, so teachers of RE, on producing some resources that address some of the issues to do with Black Lives Matter. And that was part funded by Methodist schools and the Free Churches group. And so their funding was received quickly, and then this work was done over the summer, and it's now freely available online. And you've got the link there at the bottom of that little bit of information. And so it's just a very timely way of exploring issues to do with prejudice and racism and the Black Lives Matter issues and concerns are raised in that. So I would really encourage you to have a look at that. There's a website which has additional resources, lots of video clips from a lot of these teachers talking about how they're using it and some of the other matters that arise from Black Lives Matter. So that's definitely something to look at, and it's possible that we might put on some webinars from RE Today as well. I think there are probably some plan for that. We could let schools know about those as well.
Okay, I think that could go on the same email that to get Alison to send round. So if I took that whole page there, that we could pass that on to the school that's on those two subjects. Any comments from the floor, please? No? Okay. What else would you like to discuss on the update, Stephen?
There's a bit more background there about what happened with GCSE. As Councillor Harvey was raising that question, that obviously pupils got grades, and at the top of page 25, it points out that the numbers of pupils who received grades in religious studies GCSE was only very slightly down on last year's. Which is very encouraging. Well, it's slightly encouraging. We hope that this is the bottom of the drop, and maybe the numbers will go up in subsequent years. Obviously, there's real challenges for teachers and pupils as they finish the course for next summer, and so obviously a lot of pupils lost a lot of time, and so the information only came out. Just as I was putting this paper together, only came out on the 12th of October that the exams are being delayed by 3 weeks to allow schools to have catch up a little bit more time with that. So there's information there about the GCSEs. A point about the requirement that was reiterated in Parliament, as well as the one I've mentioned there about Nick Gibb, about a requirement for schools to still be doing RE, even though they are needing to catch up with stuff. They can't drop their RE. It's still part of a broad and balanced curriculum, which is encouraging for us, but obviously still challenging for schools. And then just one more thing is that there is the Strictly RE conference, which is an annual conference for teachers of RE, primary and secondary. It's been going for 5 years now. This is the first one that's going to be online. And that conference is coming up at the end of January, and definitely worth, again, schools having a look at that. The details you can find out, the links are there as well. There's an early bird offer for the next few days, £85, but we usually have between 250 and 300 people attend that. And we're hoping for 500 people to be on that one. So it'll be a major thing, lots and lots of streams of workshops and seminars, but a lot of dealing with two big issues. One is about the idea of worldviews, which is, you'll remember from the Commission on RE report, recommends that RE be renamed as religion and worldviews. So there's a lot of work being going on worldviews. So there'll be a stream on that at this conference, and also responding to Black Lives Matter and issues to do with racism and prejudice. And so those will be two of the themes for that weekend as well. So I encourage you to have a look at that.
Can you speak any more on the changes or the proposed changes idea about teaching worldview rather than RE?
Well, I know many members of SACRE will remember the Commission report, which had that recommendation, and it started talking about the idea that using the term worldviews embraces people who are not religious. And you'll know from the demographics that the number of people who say they are not religious in surveys, particularly among young people, that's rising in this country. And so it's that demographic, taking that demographic into consideration. But there's also a real realization that worldviews, you can have religious or a non-religious worldview. And some of you may remember the report distinguishes between personal worldviews and institutional or organized worldviews. And that's one of the things that they're suggesting we look at a little bit more in RE. Having suggested that, it's then in the subsequent 2 years, it's been necessary for the RE Council to put on a lot of research about what we mean by worldviews. And so if people didn't understand religious education, there's a lot of work now going into trying to explain what worldviews education would be. And a report on worldviews came out from the Theos Foundation this week, on Wednesday this week. And the RE Council have got a worldviews project running at the moment, and their position papers are coming out on the 10th of November. I mean, it might be worth having a look at those before we meet next time and having a chance to talk about it and what its implications are for us at the next meeting.
Yes, I have quite a few concerns over it also, yes. If we could have that on the agenda for next time, please, Matt. And if you could just send us any links now as well, Stephen.
Yep.
While I think of it, are people happy to have links sent to them or bits and pieces in between times, as we only meet twice a year? Would it be helpful? Yeah. And are you happy for everybody to have your email rather than only through Matt? Yeah, okay. I think that'd be quite a useful way for us to not lose sight of what's going on. And hello, Chris. I'll get to you in just a moment. We'll just finish up on this point. I think we can actually leave this one for the moment and come back to it after we've spoken with Chris, as they're short snippets. So I would like to welcome Chris Giles. Hello, Chris.
Thank you. Hello there. Hello,
haven't seen you for a long time. Chris and I have known each other for many years, and from Worcestershire group, etc. And I'm sure what he's going to be talking about is going to be of great interest to us. And we probably have quite a few questions after Chris. So
yes.
how are we doing it? Are you just talking? Or are you expecting to show us anything?
I'm not expecting to show you anything. I'm just doing a short introduction, and then I've got a proposal to put forward to the members of SACRE.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead then.
So just to introduce myself, for those of you who may not know me, it's a great privilege to work with you. Thank you for that introduction, Lama Josang. And it was a privilege to serve with you on Worcestershire SACRE, and I'm still serving there. I'm also head of RS at South Bromsgrove High School, which you can see a part of behind me, a very small part. And one of my roles is also as West Midlands NATRE Regional Ambassador, and that sounds very grand, that title, but really it's a role which has a capacity. We have 10 regional ambassadors across England, and I'm heading up the West Midlands, and specifically there's 3 aims to that role. One is to develop local NATRE groups, and I know you've got Tracy and other people within Herefordshire that run local groups, which is brilliant, local NATRE groups. Secondly, really to connect and to help RE teachers. One thing I have a big heart for is RE teachers leading within primary schools and secondary schools, particularly when they're on their own and gaining levels of support from members and from colleagues. And finally, challenging RE and supporting schools where they have no RE. That's something I have a big heart for as well, which fits this role. And really trying to support those people and head teachers as well who have a very challenging time trying to provide resources. So it's really with the last one on resources that I want to speak to you about today, because St Peter's and Saltley Trust are a relatively small but well-funded local trust within the West Midlands, and they are putting some funding together to support a local hub website for the West Midlands. And I'm speaking to each of the SACREs within West Midlands really to ask for a list of local contacts and places of worship, which I know you will have quite a few within Herefordshire to support people. So this hub, this website that we are setting up, which has been funded by St Peter's Saltley Trust, will provide RE teachers really with good local contacts where they can just phone someone up, send an email, or contact someone. Now I know Tracy has started to compile a list for her local NATRE group, and we've been in email contact with one another. And it's really to put a proposal towards members to ask, and I know that you will have contacts yourselves locally that we can use, and to really keep this as an updated local list. Now I know that you've put together some ideas with Gloucestershire, but it'd be really good to have a bespoke one for Herefordshire, specifically for your area. So my proposal is that Tracy and I, with your help and support, will put together a list that can be used and utilised by RE teachers. Obviously, we need their permissions, and we need to ask, the various places of worship and the contact places. And it's really to ask you, have you already got something like that in existence? And really for your advice to that end.
Right. So we have a little something online, don't we, Stephen? One thing we don't have in Herefordshire, though, Chris, is that we don't have the churches from other faiths.
Right.
So we don't have places to visit other than Christian ones.
Yes.
We got one Buddhist one at the very edge of the county with Worcestershire, but other than that, there isn't anything for visits, which is a great shame.
Yes.
It's something that's really missing. How do you propose this site is going to be? What sort of material can we offer?
Yeah, I mean, it's that's just one branch really of this site. Other areas will be things like artifacts. So, for example, at Worcester University, we have artifacts that can be borrowed by not just RE teachers but members of the public, and it's really it's a signposting site. So it's helping RE teachers find resources and information out there that they can easily access. So it's really a hub that's gathering not just SACRE contacts but local places of worship, also resources and charities and other people that are involved with RE, lots of different organizations, and it's just signposting people in the right direction really. And the idea of a hub is that they can go to this and find information and resources easily.
Are you expecting the different faiths to be donating the physical items, or is there a funding for them being purchased?
Yeah, that's a good question. So whilst there's an initial sum of money to set up the hub and the site, there's no additional funding at this point to obviously donations are welcome, but it's really to see what's out there already, I think, and really to see and connect people into local places and local. I mean, if we have got someone locally I've got a range of resources here, it's just nice to be able to share it with obviously being COVID friendly, but with middle schools and other schools. And quite often you have these resources and bring them all out on an open evening, but they're not always utilised and used effectively. So it's really asking schools if they'd be willing to share some of these ideas and resources, but also, faith groups can obviously donate if they want to, or people can purchase them individually for schools, but it's really a communication to help other people.
Didn't I ask last meeting, Alison, if we had anywhere similar to the Worcester Hub from the point of view of physical things, items that teachers could pick up regarding each of the faiths? Did you mention that it was the main library or something? Or is that spurious information I picked up from elsewhere?
No, I recall somebody saying it was the library. I don't know who said it. It wasn't me. Mm-hmm. Library is what I thought it was.
Mark?
Yeah, the Ludlow Maskell Centre, we have a selection of resources there, but of course it's a bit further away from Hereford, but it is available to schools across the diocese region. Right. They can book it online, but obviously at the moment you can't very easily go and collect resources and deal with it is the problem.
Yeah.
We also we've produced our own list to our schools. Obviously it covers more than just Hereford, of places of worship that our schools have used and recommended to us in the past, and a few visitors, and a virtual one which I can send to both Tracy and Chris as well to look at.
That's fantastic, Mark. Thank you. That sounds brilliant.
I mean, I don't know whether you know, Chris, but the diocese for Herefordshire runs into about half of Shropshire as well.
Right.
It's quite an interesting.
And Telford and Wrekin.
Yeah.
And a bit of Worcestershire as well.
That's really good to know, actually, because Shropshire, I'm struggling to get in contact with many RE teachers sort of up towards Telford and Shropshire way. I've got one or two contacts, but yeah, that's really useful to know, actually. Thank you.
It is something that I've really wanted to get going in Herefordshire, because I've actually seen the hub in Worcester where they've got physical big plastic boxes, each one of them for a particular religion, and it's full of artifacts that the teachers can use, and they go and pick them up and borrow them for a week, etc., and bring them back. And we don't seem to have anything like that in Herefordshire. So I had started putting feelers out when I heard Chris was doing this project, so it might fit in slightly with our idea of how do we go and do one, or we've probably got a little time, because can people use it at the moment with the COVID restrictions?
No, obviously at the moment we can't at the moment, and yeah, so we're just waiting to see what changes there with COVID. So we can't lend them out, but yeah, there will be opportunities hopefully in the future, which is great. And I can post my email into the chat if that's okay with you, if Mark and others want to get in touch, and we can update that list, and I can let Tracy deliver that on the next SACRE meeting to you guys, which will be on a continuously updated sort of item.
Okay, sorry, Chair. We've got 4 people who want to come in to speak. We've got Canon Nugent, Mr. Harrington, Mrs. Alt, and Councillor Hewitt.
Okay, if you can take them in order then, please, Matt. Ask them.
Canon Nugent, please.
Yeah, it was an exercise that I did a couple of years ago, trying to get volunteers from different churches to offer their services. So I have a small list, which I'm more than happy to share with Chris and Tracy.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that'd be really helpful. Thank you so much.
And I'm also willing to publicise that amongst the different churches and denominations around Herefordshire as well, that it's something that schools are looking for again. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Canon. That's really appreciated. Thank you.
Who was next, Matt?
Mrs. Alt.
Unmute.
I think a good idea would be to catalogue all the resources, for the schools, with perhaps small photographs of the artifacts and small photographs of the churches, so that they could be sent to all the teachers to catalogue them. But there was a resource box definitely in Hereford at the library. I know because I made it for the Baha'i one, and I think it was when lots of libraries closed. I think they've been put in store somewhere in the Shire Hall or somewhere like that. I'm not quite sure, but there definitely were some resource boxes made in Herefordshire. The other thing I was going to say, just I think cataloguing the resources will make it easier for teachers to see what's what and where. There's so many.
Okay, and Councillor Hewitt.
Well, basically, I was just going to reiterate what the previous speaker said, because I also used, whilst I was teaching, boxes that came from the school's library service. But there are a couple of other places. Oxfam used to have a resources service in Malvern where you could, basically they were cultural, but they also had cultural and religious artifacts. So that might be a route that you could look at. And I don't know whether the library service had boxes that were put together by the museum service, but I think the museum service also has artifacts in that, that they can categorise in that way. So you might want to look into that.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay. Who's the right one to be phoning and looking into this? Somebody volunteer? Can you volunteer, please? No.
Well, I'm quite happy as part of my role to obviously follow up with Tracy some of these notes that I've been making here. So I'm quite happy to do that within Herefordshire and see what I get back from people, and then you can obviously add to the list according to my initial inquiries.
I think what we need to do we need to find out, number one, we need to find out what's out there.
Yes.
What's still available, what can be available by collating what's available, what's there, deciding on where it's going to be physically housed, and then from that, seeing what's missing, and perhaps have that on the agenda for next March, please, Matt.
Yes.
Because from then we might need to be considering getting some funding to get them all up to a standard, so that when we got the COVID restrictions are eased and people can start using them, that we've actually got a system there that is worthy of picking up, and we got the system so that we can keep track of it all and we can ensure that they're returned correctly, etc. So we need to learn from, I mean, you can tell us this, Chris, we need to learn from Worcestershire on how they manage it at the library there, at the hub, because it seemed to work. I don't know in the long term whether everything's always been returned properly, but it seemed to be working when I saw it all anyway.
Yeah, it is, and it's quite a comprehensive range of resources and artifacts there, and obviously it's from public funding, which is fantastic. So anyone can borrow that as it currently stands. But yeah, it is regularly updated. But I think it'd be really useful to have two items really from members. Firstly, a list of any places of worship and good context that you have locally at all, and then secondly, really the artifacts. And then where we perhaps might need to invest. But if you can get in contact with me at the email address, that will be really useful. But I really appreciate, some of the leads that you've got here, which is brilliant. You're obviously very, very active within Herefordshire, and we're just in the process of updating our list, which is from 2007 in Worcestershire. And of course, these things do need updating, don't they, every so often? But it is such a good resource for RE teachers and for other professionals from universities and different places to have. So thank you, really appreciate it.
Well, what I want to do is make contact with some other people, Chris, perhaps even yourself privately, to discuss how to deliver online teachings into the classroom.
Right.
I tried it the other day, but I couldn't hear. I had the questions sent ahead of time, thank goodness. Yes. But I ended up talking literally non-stop for an hour and a half, which, you can all smile over, but it was quite difficult because I couldn't hear any questions or any comments from the floor because they were too far away from the computer. Now, this is senior schools, it wasn't primary, but I need to I want to, but we need to work out how we can make this work. We're all using legacy software and computers as faith representatives. We'd like to offer the service. Quite a few of us are quite interested in this, but we need to work with some teachers, work with yourself perhaps on, what are other people doing? How can we make this happen? And then we can have a list of people. And I suggest it be cheaper for schools to hire us online for a couple of hours at a time than it was to pay us to come in and teach for a whole day in the school.
Absolutely, and obviously save on petrol and travel costs as well.
Yeah.
And I think it is the way for the future. I had a sixth form conference recently with the University of Birmingham, and normally we get someone to come in to plug theology and philosophy from their department, but it was lovely to have the students interacting with someone. And I think this will be the way forward for the moment, with sort of virtual tours taking more precedence of places of worship and people online. And I think it's lovely that you can have this question and answer and bring have breakout groups, which can be quite effective as well on places like Zoom and through other pieces of software where you can split students into groups to discuss things and come back. And I'm learning, I've only just picked up online learning, as many of you have in the last 12 months. So I'm learning from other people as well, but it's there are a lot of tactics and simple things we can use to make sure our delivery is effective and our communication is clear when we're speaking to people online. And I think a lot more courses will be going this route as well, as Stephen knows from NATRE and RE Today, and it's he's well versed as well, as I'm sure a lot of your members are in this area, developing area really. But I'm learning. I feel like an infant again.
Is RE Today looked into this side of things, Stephen, and maybe training programs for us, or I don't know. I'm just feeling my way on this one at the moment.
We haven't been doing any training for faith visitors at the moment. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of training for teachers, but that's something we could look at.
Yeah, I think it's quite important. If we can have, again, on for the agenda next time, just an update on where we're going with this as a point of interest, Matt.
Okay, we have two people wanting to speak at the moment.
Okay.
So we have Councillor Stone and Ms. Westlake.
Okay, Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Chris. I do have a connection with the Bishop Maskell Centre in Ludlow, so I can make an inquiry there about resources, going back to the resources issue, what's available for schools there, and I can feed that into you, Chris, and to SACRE. But unfortunately, there have been quite a lot of sort of reductions in staffing and so on in the Ludlow Centre due to the general situation we're in at the moment, and for other reasons as well. But I will see what I can find out before the next SACRE meeting, and will contact Chris accordingly, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, who else was it who was?
It's just Tracy Westlake.
Oh, Tracy. It's because we haven't got the picture of you, Tracy. I don't see you down there.
Sorry, I'm in a classroom, so my head asked me to not put my camera on because there are a few children keep popping in and out. It was just to say really to you that I've been trying to speak to as many of the contacts that I have as possible to ask them pretty much for a COVID update, so how they're envisaging contributing to schools during this time. And they've all got kind of different ideas of how they're doing it. We've done a few trials with my class of people that are a bit nervous and want to kind of try things out. So I'm also happy to work with Chris to kind of put together of ways that other people are doing it, what's worked so far, what hasn't worked, that kind of thing, if you think it would be useful.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah. Are you going to comment on that, Chris, or?
Yeah, very happy to work with Tracy. Obviously, we worked together previously at conferences, and yeah, that I think putting something together for members and for faith representatives, we could do that for a future SACRE meeting.
Okay. Any questions to Chris from the floor, please? No. Any comments? Anything else that you wanted to say at this stage, Chris?
No, just to thank members for their support, and please do get in touch with local contacts. I just think this is just one way that we can really help RE teachers and they can feel supported. I think it's something clearly that you guys are passionate about as well. And yeah, it's just I just really want to support teachers as best we can in these times, really, because it's very easy to feel isolated.
Well, thank you very much for that, Chris. Thanks for coming on. And we can always sort of call you back in for an update, depending on where we're at. You know, we'll make a decision on that come next February when we do the agenda. But thank you very much, and best of luck with all that.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if we're going to continue, shall we go back to what have we got to? Update on any new initiatives in RE. Can we go back to you, Stephen, if there's anything else that we haven't covered?
I think we've pretty much covered everything. There's one update on these updates, which is on page 27, the increase in number of secondary trainees. It's good news that the number of people who are trained to be RE teachers has gone up this year. I know that Worcester University's got a large group now. The disappointing update since putting this report together is that many of you will know the Department for Education have withdrawn their bursaries for a number of subjects, including RE. But that's because the numbers are up. They feel they don't need to offer bursaries to attract people to training. And so RE, along with history and geography and a number of other subjects, have lost their bursaries, which is a real shame, really. But for now, the numbers of trainees is at least up this year.
Good. Okay, just looking through, I think, yes, we have. Does anybody on the floor want to make any comments on the new initiatives? Anyone, Matt? No? Okay.
Oh, Councillor Stone has just put his hand up.
Yep.
Well, Chairman, just reminded me, you mentioned the Interfaith Week. Could you just give us an update about the proposed peace service at Hereford Cathedral, which couldn't take place this year, Are there any thoughts about next year?
Yes, thank you for that. Yes, we what we decided to do this year. Did you all get the link for our peace service? We spent several hundred hours on putting together a peace service. We decided we'd do it online and we'd have it as an hour long as it would have been in the cathedral, more or less. So we had many hours of practicing chanting, which Midge was part of the chanting group. And we had to find out how to do it and put it on YouTube and get all the pictures. I can't remember how many hundred pictures that I found in the end. And one of our musician was quite technical, and he spent a couple of 100 hours, 300 hours, I'm not quite sure how many, on recording us because we weren't allowed to get together. So we all had to go one by one into a room and be recorded by him. Which was very new to most of us, and then he had to marry it up. And as we, when you're chanting, you chant organically, you don't chant to a score. So we had to marry this all up, coming in at separate seconds, and it was quite an interesting exercise. And Mike and I lived and breathed it, and even slept it at one point. We were both waking up in our sleep chanting and having pictures running through our minds. It was quite a task, but we had 40 odd people join us for the whole service, and then after for the talk and the get together, and then 550 odd people linked in to listen to it in the first week, which was quite interesting. And as Stephen reminded me, that was probably 500 more people that we managed to make contact with that we possibly wouldn't have done, by any other means, because they're probably out of the area. So I have actually booked the date for next year, but I am reconsidering whether we go ahead and think that we're going to do one at the cathedral next year, or do we, for safety's sake, say let it be the year after that, rather than go through the whole scenario again? Because we realised that we probably won't put together an hour-long programme ever again. We might put together 15-minute, 20-minute ones throughout the year, but so I'll have to give you an update on whether it's going to go ahead at the cathedral or not. I just need to talk with them at the cathedral about what the reality is, because again, I'd much rather be in control of our near future rather than the COVID scenario running us around in circles. So thank you for raising that one. That was yes, it was really rather nice. And we're looking to actually re-release it out in Interfaith Week. I'm just sort of talking with a couple of others that perhaps we'll re-release it out and there'll be an evening where people can just get together and listen to it together. So that'd be quite an easy one to do. But thank you, John. Anybody else on the list, Matt? Okay.
Chairman?
Yes, John. Yeah.
Just to add, I think that's quite a sensible idea about going for 2022 rather than 2021, because we don't quite know where we'll be in the first half of next year, and we've got to plan it well ahead. And it'd be awful to arrange it all, and you'd have to cancel it all again and postpone it. Whereas if you give it another year, it's a bit like the Commonwealth Games. They'll be in 2022 as well. So maybe we can have both in 2022. Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, the peace at Hereford Cathedral. And we need peace at the moment, don't we?
Yeah, I feel I was talking with Chris Pullen at the cathedral, and I was saying that about, I feel inclined to make it more national next time, spread our wings a little bit. But I personally will probably be out of action for about 4 or 5 months at the beginning of next year. So I'm not sure whether because I'm the enthusiastic one that drives it along, and I'm not sure whether it could happen without me. And I don't mean that as an arrogance, but it is my enthusiasm that keeps it going most of the time. So I'm debating on that one as well. Anyway, if we finished on number 8, number 9, roundtable updates. I've got one. Has anybody else got any updates they'd like to offer? Anything you're doing in your particular churches or schools or anything that would be of interest to us in your communities?
Okay. Councillor Hewitt's put a hand up and Mr. Harrington as well.
Okay, Councillor Hewitt first and Mr. Harrington after, please. Unmute yourself, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was in relation to the previous item, actually.
Okay, so
I don't see why you can't just rerun the hour-long thing that you did last year, which was so successfully received, and you could just edit the beginning of it. You could use it again.
Good point.
That's a consideration, but we have actually started our chanting sessions already. We started on Monday, and we're going more in depth with it. So we're doing them online, so that's more interesting, of course. But yes, it is a thought. Thank you. Yeah. And Mr. Harrington.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we've started running our training online this year, and what we're offering this year are 3 sessions on creative RE, where we're exploring the beliefs, the core central beliefs. So we've already covered Islam. We're going to be meeting with a faith member of the Jewish community to look at Judaism and then Hinduism in the spring term. We've had a group of teachers together who've come, and we've dialogued online with the local faith member as looking at sort of how we would use artifacts, for example, how you would respectfully use a Quran in teaching, and also looking at the core beliefs, including using some of the elements from picturing Islam as well that's been mentioned already, and talking about jihad as well and how you can actually teach about that within a primary school. And we've got RE leaders, a few RE leaders networks with that are coming up as well that are just going out in our bulletin today. And we're also running a session for RE leaders for development in church schools. And then the one other course we have put on this year, it was a new one, was the RE refresher course for understanding Christianity for schools that are already using understanding Christianity as a chance for, if they've got teachers who are new to the school or an RE coordinator who's not met it before, but it's already embedded in the school, where they can catch up and get some help on that as well, which has worked quite well.
That sounds interesting.
At the moment for what we're doing for RE.
These are the sort of things that, based on what Midge was saying, that really we could have to go towards our next year's report to make the report more interesting. Stephen, would it work if you, or would it work better if Alison had a file that people could send in comments, paragraphs throughout the year and the pictures, and they could all be collated so you're not actually asking for them at the last minute? Whose job is it to collate all that sort of thing?
I would be delighted if people would send me stuff through the year.
Okay. So please do, everyone, because it's so much easier when you're all enthusiastic and you've taken a picture that you send it off with a couple of paragraphs or a paragraph, rather than 10 months later try and remember how exciting it was. So, right, that's something for everybody. That's your homework, okay? And there was there somebody else, Matt, on the queue? You're muted, Matt.
Hello, sorry, Councillor Stone has got his hand up.
Okay, yes, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. On the question of pictures, Stephen was desperate for photographs for the agreed syllabus launch. He wanted some photographs from around the county, and I don't think he could get hold of any, and I'm afraid we weren't very good at sending them in. So it's one thing to say, oh, it's a good idea to send all these photos in, but somebody's actually got to take the photos, and it needs to be somebody who's fairly good at taking photos if we're going to make a success of this project. But I'm sure there are some keen photographers among us, but we need to be enthusiastic about it and do something about it. Thank you.
Yes, I found when I was asking for pictures for our online offering, people sending ones of their wives bending over, picking up something in front of a wonderful, magical place in India didn't quite work, you know.
They've got to be the right photographs.
It certainly has. So yes, you know, but again, it's so much easier to do it at that moment, isn't it?
It is, yes,
than retrospectively. Okay, I've got one comment that I wanted to make, is that we haven't done anything yet about new members. So we still need to look into new faith representatives. And I must admit, that was me being as slow as everybody else. I think we all forgot, actually, that that's what we were going to be doing. So if anybody knows of any members for, help me out here, Matt, we need one for Muslim, Hindu, Quaker. Who else are we short on? You're muted again, Matt. I still can't hear you, actually, Matt. No, I still can't hear you.
Matt, just try unplugging your headset and just sticking it back in.
Okay, is that any clearer?
Yes, brilliant.
Okay,
yes.
sorry about that. Apologies. Yes, sorry. So we've got vacancies for a representative of the Muslim faith, a representative of the Sikh faith, a representative of the Jewish faith, a representative of the Hindu faith, and a representative of the Quaker faith as well.
So that's quite a lot. We're certainly, yeah, I'll just get to you in a moment, Councillor. Yeah, yeah, that's certainly a huge thing that's missing out of our group at the moment. So Councillor Harvey and then Councillor Hewitt wanted to make comments.
I was just wondering if there was any implication of the syllabus being renamed to include world views, whether there is a requirement to broaden that group to include some other representatives, humanist, that sort of thing. There's an awful lot of those sorts of services that are being run for all the funerals I'm having to go to at the moment. So I just wonder whether the syllabus renaming does, if we're responsible for the syllabus, does require us to broaden the group. I know it might seem like an odd debate, given that we're struggling to fill the seats that we should be filling from faith groups. But you never know, you might find that the faithless are more faithful in stepping forward.
At other SACREs, we have actually included humanists. Does anybody feel here that they would be happy for a humanist to come to the next meeting and discuss with us their outlook? Comments on that before? Yeah.
Sorry, isn't it more about the syllabus? If that's what we're responsible for, the teaching of the syllabus, and that's the only bit of the education sort of curriculum that the council remains responsible for. Aren't we driven by the structure of the syllabus? I'm personally not particularly interested in quizzing somebody about their beliefs or their own belief system. It's more a case of whether, in the context of the syllabus that we are responsible for agreeing and supporting, that we have a representative sample of people here with us to engage in that discussion.
Stephen, can I bring you in on this, please? And I'm going to just mention it's now coming up to 10 to 4, so we'll go through a quick discussion on this. This is the last point of the meeting. We can always carry it forward, but yes, Stephen, can you make comment from the syllabus perspective, please?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is that the syllabus is in place for 5 years. It does already include people with non-religious worldviews, includes humanism. The discussion about calling the subject religion and worldviews is a separate matter at the moment, because that's just conversation that's going on as opposed to any requirement. And we might be able to, well, obviously, if we've talked about it next time, we'll be able to respond better to that, I think. But in terms of the membership of SACRE, that is separate to the syllabus. But I mean, yeah, a lot of other local authorities do have humanist representatives on SACRE, usually within Committee A, which is Christian denominations and other faiths. I mean, there have been some controversies about it over the years as to whether humanists should be full members, but a lot of SACREs do have that. I'm sure that we've had humanist representation, certainly in things, certainly within things that we've done. I remember we trained someone in the training that Hereford SACRE did in 2011, the sort of the Midge, you were talking about that earlier. And there was humanist representative on that. So, no, there has been that involvement. If for a change in the constitution, that's obviously a easy discussion to have.
Okay. So do we wish to discuss it further next time and see if we want to make any change to the constitution to bring in others that aren't from a religious background? We've introduced the Quakers now. So that's one. What do people think, please? Yes? Discuss it further next time with a real enthusiasm to go forward rather than just, yeah, okay. Okay, because I think it deserves some time and some real thought into it.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Harvey, yeah.
Well, it's going to be put on the agenda for the next meeting. Is there any information that we could have against that agenda item to help us understand what the breadth is of other SACRE committees in terms of their Committee A makeup beyond the traditional faith groups?
Sorry, I don't quite understand your point.
Well, if Stephen's saying that other SACREs do have representation from other groups that are considered not to be the core faith groups, I would find it interesting to understand what those groups are that are represented on other SACRE committees, if we're going to bump it to the next meeting to have a look at, just to inform the discussion. If we're, there will be time to find that information out, because we're not going to meet for another 6 months.
Okay, yeah, I get that point. It's usually, I don't know whether it quite answers your question, but usually the SACREs, it's been left to local SACREs to account for local flavour, for local understanding. And some SACREs, for instance, are brought in humanists and it works. Other SACREs are brought in humanists and it hasn't worked. It depends on the makeup of that area. So we got the freedom to bring in others from other belief systems if we feel it's appropriate for those people to be given the right to go into the schools and discuss it with the children, because that's the whole basis of that. It's not a legal requirement, it's more a question of covering what's out there.
Okay, well, maybe it will be helpful also in that case to get some information from the research team at the council in terms of what the religious demographic responses have been to the latest census information that we have available, if we need a local flavour.
Yeah, I've got 2011. We're having the next one next year, aren't we? So yes, I can send round by email the link on that, or unless you've got the link already, have you, Matt, somewhere that you can get it to hand? Otherwise, I'll do it.
I think
we can certainly
the next
find
agenda
it.
pack, can't it?
Yeah, it can form part of the report which comes to the next committee meeting. Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I've always been quite for humanists to be involved, but the one thing we always have to remember that if you look at the humanist website, it puts you off rather, because they make the assumption that anybody that doesn't follow the faith is automatically a humanist. So it brings up some problems, and it would be useful if everybody had a quick look at the humanist website, for instance, before the next meeting, if we were going to be particularly discussing them. But going back to the fact that we need these other representatives, if any of you, please, if you know somebody who would seem to be appropriate to be a representative of their faith on our committee, if you could please make contact with me personally, because the usual thing is the chairman and either one other, either Alison or Stephen, would interview them with, unless their particular church has already interviewed them and they send a letter for saying that they're the right sort of person to have on board. Obviously,
sorry, Chair, just to interrupt. Tracy Westlake's emailed me just to say that she has a Sikh and a Muslim contact. She also has a humanist contact, but that'll be subject to discussions at the next meeting.
Oh, well, okay, Tracy, send them to me then, please, and we'll talk together on that one. Brilliant.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay. Is there any other comments before we close the meeting?
Canon Nugent's got a hand up.
Yep, please, Anna. Hi.
I'm happy to approach the Southern Marches Area Quaker meeting and see if they would like to send a representative. If I didn't realise we're one short of a Quaker, so see if they would like to put somebody forward.
Okay, and if I can make sort of back to the comment that it needs to be somebody that's interested in education or else knows about education. If they do then go into the schools, it would work. You know, there's no point having somebody that just represents the faith and has got no interest in schools or got no inclination to understand. So it has to be just the right person, obviously. And it's so much easier to say no before they join than to get rid of somebody afterwards because they don't turn out to be the right person. Okay, is there anything else other than the fact that our next meeting will be held on the 12th of March, 2021? That fits in okay with yourself, doesn't it, Midge? It's not anywhere near your celebrations.
No, I'll be fasting, but yeah, I'll be all right.
Ah. Actually, did you all enjoy the chocolate biscuits that I bought for the meeting today? I think I'm being let off lightly, aren't I, John?
You're being let off very lightly, Chairman. I think it's a great shame. One of the disadvantages of not having meetings face to face is that the Chairman doesn't produce the chocolate biscuits or some refreshments, which we all very much enjoy. It makes it a much more convivial occasion.
Perhaps we'll start with some opener next time that will get us all in the mood.
A meditation, perhaps.
Well, that was the point, actually. Who would you like to do the next prayer or thought for the moment? Midge, how would you like to do it next time, please?
I should be in quite a spiritual mood if I'm fasting, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Okay.
That sounds a lovely idea.
Okay. Well, if that's all, I'll is that last call? Is there anything else that needs to be said? And thank you so much for coping with a 2-hour meeting. It obviously is going to take longer because of the various reasons, but I think we've got through a lot, and thank you for tolerating the first one with all our little glitches. And I announce the meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.